Welcome to Inside Personal Growth Podcast. Deep dive with us as we unlock the secrets to personal development, empowering you to thrive. Here, growth isn't just a goal, it's a journey. Tune in, transform, and take your life to the next level by listening to just one of our podcasts. Well, welcome back to Inside Personal Growth for another episode. I don't know which episode this will be, but joining me from the other side of the country, you're in Pennsylvania, correct?
Correct.
Yes, is Penny Zenker, and her book is called The Reset Mindset. And she was referred to me by Greg Reed, who's been on the show many times and is a friend of Penny's. And if you get this easy to read book, look, it's only this thick, and it is an easy to read book, and it's a smaller book. And I find that, Penny, most people are so busy to do, these are the kind of books they're looking to read, is the small ones that they can read on a plane, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I even wanted to make it smaller, but you need more time to make it even smaller.
Yes, you do. You do. Well, I thank you for being on the show. And I'm going to let our listeners know a little bit about you because I always start off these shows giving them a little bit of background. Penny, she calls herself AKA the Focusologist, is an international speaker, business strategy coach, and one of America's leading experts in the psychology of productivity. She had a previous book called The Productivity Zone, which was an Amazon instant bestseller. So congratulations on that. And so she decided to write another one. And so here we are. She's a leading expert, as I said, in productivity, eliminating distractions, perfectionism, and self-sabotage to maximize results in every area of one's life and business. By the time she was 31, I found this really interesting. Penny founded, developed, and sold her first multi-million-dollar business in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm actually dealing with a company now called Stormer. They make bicycles, electric bikes, and they're in Switzerland. Later, she managed business units, turnarounds for a large marketing research company, and served as a Tony Robbins business coach. Tony used to be here in San Diego. I now know he's moved to Florida, helping entrepreneurs worldwide double their businesses. As I said, her first book, The Productivity Zone, was an Amazon bestseller, and you can find her on TED Talks as well. We'll have a link to that. The Energy of Thought. Well, you've been around, young lady, and you've had an opportunity to speak to thousands of people. So people go to your website, which I'm going to mention that website so that they can do it. It is Penny, Zenker 360.com. That's Penny, Zenker 360.com. Go to that website if you want to know more. Well, look, you wrote one book. First off, it was a great seller. Everybody's interested in productivity. What inspired you to write The Reset Mindset, and what key experiences in your life really led to you developing the concepts in this book?
Well, I'll start with the first question. What's interesting is it started out as a different book. So it started out where I was going to write a book that was called something, it was going to be called something about living the 80-20 rule. And then as I started to dig in it and how I use the 80-20 rule and what it is to me, and looking at how I work with people and what my process has been, I realized that the 80-20 rule is a reset practice. It's only one of many different practices that I use to help me to reset, or to help a company or a business leader that I'm working with to create that reset. So it like morphed into this, different, where it's really about the mindset and having a reset mindset, and how we approach these different challenges or changes that we're facing, and how do we, it became what the reset mindset is today, is about how we create more of a dynamic reassessment, a mindset that makes us more dynamic. And so I kind of call it the next generation of the growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And because the growth mindset is about effort and persistence and learning and growing. And we want that as well, but we don't have to put as much effort or persistence in. If we dynamically reassess, we can learn faster. We do it real time and we shorten the learning curve.
Mm-hmm. Well, and one of these is you mentioned the book that this reset mindset, and I get this because look, when people are trying to get focused and become more productive, um, the whole flow thing is a big deal. How do I get into this state of flow? What are the actual chemical releases in my body if we really want to get to the mechanisms of it? The endorphins and the oxytocins and the things
Mhm.
that make me feel good. And it's almost like timelessness, right? Now, you said that this reset mindset was this initially a coping mechanism for personal tragedy.
Mhm.
Um, how did this evolve into the broader strategy of your life and work, and what personal tragedy might you be referencing?
Right. So yeah, when I started to dig into my process and how long have I been doing this? When was the first time that I can recall, taking these reset moments and living in this way? It was actually when I was 19 and my father died in an accident when my parents were actually overseas on vacation. And, so yeah, it was a time where my life was totally out of control. And I use these, what I call reset moments, to give myself permission to pull it together, to, as that coping mechanism when and where I needed it, so that I could take that purposeful pause and just ground myself and reconnect to what matters most, and just, be able to control my emotions and focus forward. So that's how it started out. But the thing is like anything, as you start to practice it and it starts to produce benefits for you, it just helped me be calmer and more in control and more focused about, what matters most, who are the people that I want to be with. It was very clear to me, right? To who were the people who were there for me. And it was also a mechanism to help me let go, right? To feel freer, to let go of the things I can't control, or to let go of the people in my life that, aren't going to be there in the future, right? There's a statement of reason, season, lifetime. Some people are in our life for a reason or a season, or lifetime. And just understanding that not everybody is in our life for a lifetime. And then, yeah, it's like it started to show up in other areas, outside of my relationships. It showed up at work. How do I focus on the things that are going to grow the business, that are going to bring my work, to a greater impact? And how do I find ways to do other things? So it just kind of, I started to see them everywhere. And, that's what other people are telling me too, is they start to, because it's a sticky language too. Language gives us more access to the things that we already know too, right? It's not like this is brain
Yeah.
surgery, but it gives us greater access to it.
Well, and I also think, Penny, that what you're saying is I had a doctor on here, and you speak to this point where your father unexpectedly passed away or was killed in an accident. And it really gets us to kind of think about our finitude, right? And when you start to reflect on the breaths that we take in each moment are what are keeping us alive. So when you talk about reset, I just had a gentleman on here who does breath work. I just did a
Mm.
podcast with him. And I think it's important for people in corporate America because there's so much stress to actually be able to learn how to get this reset mindset. And you have 3 steps. You call it step back, get perspective, and realign.
Yeah.
If you would, could you walk us through this? Because this is at the core essence, it's like, hey, if this is all my listeners take away, is this little simple practice, it will be worth their morning listening to this podcast.
Yeah, totally. And I kind of wanted to have something that made sense and that was kind of like the stop, drop, and roll, right? Is, if you're in a fire, what do, right? And it's a stressful situation around you, you just stop, drop, and roll. So what happens in a reset moment when we notice a signal that we're frustrated or upset with something, or we didn't get the result that we wanted, or maybe we have a conflict with someone, wherever these types of signals show up, it intuitively triggers a reset practice, these 3 steps, when we see it as a reset moment. So if you think about it, right, you say, oh, I need to reset, then automatically, what does that mean? It means that we have to step back away from the emotion, away from the way we've always done it, and be able to be more objective about how we're looking at the situation. And then that in itself, it helps us to get some perspective, to ask new questions, to be open to new inputs, to, see things from different angles, and then to 3, realign around to the best next step, or the bigger picture that we're working towards, that our actions are aligning with our goals, our values, and our intentions. So it's 3 simple steps: step back, get perspective, and realign. And we all know them. It's not like, wow, this is, some kind of new thing. But the thing is, do we have access to it in the moments that we need it, right? That's usually when we're the least objective, is when we're emotions are high, our
Right.
intellect is low. So
Right.
if we engage in this practice, then it's going to help us to be more emotionally intelligent, to make better decisions, to reduce the intensity, so that we can approach it with our best self, and not necessarily jump after the first emotion that comes up, or the first solution that presents itself.
I love the realignment part. I'm reflecting on as you're speaking. I co-wrote a book many years ago called Wisdom, Wellness, and Redefining Work. And that book, we used breather breaks and focus phrases for the employee population. So instead of going and taking a cigarette break, because I'm that old, we were telling people to go take a breather break and then have a focus phrase, right? What is your mantra? What would be your focus phrase?
Yeah.
And your realignment really is around kind of that focus phrase. What do I tell myself once I get there? So I think that where this could be very helpful for our corporate listeners is in organizations to foster this reset mindset among employees, because you wrote a book on productivity, so that's a key, to enhance the productivity, enhance the innovation, enhance our creativeness, enhance our adaptability. How would you then advise people, especially in this fast-paced environment world in which we're living, um, to actually utilize the content from this little book, right? To actually help them, or I should say, remind them to reset. Because really now it becomes down like, oh man, I'm busy every day. I don't have time to reset.
It's true. And that's what everybody says. I don't have time to slow down. I need to push through this. But I think it's exactly that time that you feel like I don't have the time. You're saying these phrases that are, self-sabotage in a package, right? They're phrases that we know we need to, and that's why we're telling ourselves that we don't have time. And that's exactly the time that we need to do it. You know, I love that, the focus phrases. So reset is a focus phrase,
It is. Yeah.
right? And I've heard people using this, and they said, we had a really emotional, heated situation where they needed to bring in the CEO because things had escalated so far, and everybody was at ends at this across the table. And someone was just at my event, and they said, hey, could we just take a reset moment and step away from this for 3 minutes and come back into the room? So let's all disperse and then come back. And when they came back in, they were able to see it from a fresh perspective. The escalation wasn't as high, the intensity wasn't as high, and they could more quickly come up with a solution that didn't require the CEO to be involved. So, and it simply was from somebody calling for a reset.
I actually think, Penny, you should be speaking to all the media companies in this world who keep pushing this stuff out into the world and have never taken a reset, because their whole job is to sell the world based on what it is that they have to say and to get people hyped up. And there couldn't be somebody better to walk into CBS, NBC, ABC, whatever it might be, CNN, and have them do some reset mindset. Well, that's just my commentary, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because that is
Well,
what we're fed every day, all day long.
we are. And maybe to speak to that point, because unfortunately, I'm not sure that we can change because the media is set up to demand to push stuff to get our attention. So with that being said, we have to take back our intention and attention, right? Take back our focus
Mm-hmm.
by saying, I'm not going to watch the news, right? I do not watch the news. And if I did, it's at key points. Certainly, first thing in the morning, that's the worst thing that anybody could do would be to watch the news, because that's the energy that you're starting the day with. And so we need to be, really owning our focus and owning our energy and owning our intentions means we have to be more disciplined and structured as to how we want to consume that type of information, and and how much of a part we allow it to be a part of our lives, right? So these things can be distractions, and so if we want to be intentional in our life and our relationships, in our businesses, then that's one place to start too, is to say, what do I need less of in my life? you know and put some structured boundaries around the information that we're allowing into ourselves.
Yeah. And I think, you discussed the importance of adapting to change. And it seems like things are changing all the time around
Mhm.
us. And I will say the speed of change is there. And I say to you, what are some practical strategies for individuals and organizations to kind of embrace change and turn the challenges into opportunities? Because I remember Jonathan Fields saying that literally, if you go through uncertainty, you get to opportunity. And I think uncertainty is one of the things that we're all dealing with. What would be your comment there?
I guess it would be to check in, what's our relationship with uncertainty, because it, again, I have this filter that it's all about focus. If we focus on the things that are uncertain, it might make us anxious. But at the same time, when there are things that are uncertain, there are also things that are certain. So we need to have that balance. What are we certain of? We can ask ourselves that question in times of challenge. What are we certain of? And get clear on how we can approach this based on the things that we are certain of. So, for instance, if we have a culture, if we're talking about an organization, and we've fostered a culture of community, well, we can work together and collaborate and be a community as we work through this. And that can give you stability, even though everything around you is uncertain, your basis is certain, right? So we have to, in one way, right? That's what a reset mindset does, is it helps you to get perspective on that change is not a bad thing. Uncertainty is not a bad thing. And so what's our relationship with it? How could we see this as an opportunity where ask ourselves question, well, how might we use this to create a greater impact, to double our business, right? And create some really incredible goals. Look at what we did through the pandemic. Look at the medical field and how much it changed for the better, right? We now have telemedicine that is now more available to people who maybe can't get to the doctor, for some of the things that they could.
Look what you and I are doing right now. That's a great example of what happened during COVID. I mean, these shows were not being video, they were audio. And then Zoom
True.
came along. And if people really just looked at it, okay, yes, we had some services prior. But the reality is Zoom was one of the companies that brought this to too late to actually be able to do this for the common person, right? We were using other things before. But so, how does the concept of dynamic reassessment, you call it reassessment, play a role in maintaining the reset mindset? And why is this crucial for long-term success? Because, the reset mindset, we've actually got to learn how to use it, but we also want this to be playing a role in our long-term success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think of it like this. So dynamic reassessment is just taking advantage of real-time feedback, right? And so if things are changing and there's more uncertainty, then we need to shorten the periods of time that we choose to listen and engage and evaluate and reflect on that feedback. And it goes back to your point of we don't have the time. So there's important reflection points that just aren't happening when they need to happen because they're being pushed off. But those reflection points are what keep us on target. Like if we're going really fast in the wrong direction, that is going to cost us more time, money, and energy to redirect when we've already gotten down far along the path, right? So the more often that we can have conversations with our employees to understand what's working and what's not working, what's engaging them, what's not engaging them, how do we redefine these roles that might be changing over time? We need to check in more often. And that's the idea of the dynamic reassessment. And it's same thing in the marketplace. Behaviors are changing. So we don't want to wait and be left behind. We need to be able to stay on top of the different changing behaviors and even ask ourselves new questions to challenge the marketplace in terms of, well, who's not buying today and why are they not buying, for example, right? And there could be a whole marketplace just like Uber came up with a who's not buying, taxi service or whatnot that would like to have that type of service. And how do we do this in a different way so we don't take on as much risk, right? We don't own the vehicles. It's the largest transportation company in the world that doesn't own a single vehicle.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
brilliant model.
And
And
now they're
because
delivering our food.
yeah,
Uber
and then
Eats.
right, and then it this business model then was taken over into a lot of different areas. So, but it's from the questions that they asked and they challenged the marketplace, and because of that, they came up with new models, and that is how we survive and thrive in the future is to dynamically reassess our marketplace, our processes, and our leadership strategies.
Well, and I think what goes along with this, Penny, is that, look, everyone, whether it's personally or professional, we have times in our life where we're stuck. Okay. Let's just face it. I've been stuck. You've been stuck. Everybody gets stuck. It's almost like I feel like we're stuck in the mud,
Yeah.
and it's like 1,000 pounds to move one leg just to get moving. Um, and how does the reset mindset, when somebody is struggling with this, help them to actually get unstuck? I mean, even in the title here, it says,
Mhm.
how to get unstuck, focus on what matters most and reach your goals faster. I we've had Brian Trayson on here recently. He is like the goal guy, right? So the question is okay, yeah, we all have goals, but I know one of the things that gets you stuck is if you're attached to it happening in a certain way. That's
Mhm.
attachment to the goal. Goals don't always happen the way you expect them to happen. It's great
That's
to
true.
have goals, it's great to set them, but where you get disappointed is when you've attached to something so much. And that's how you get stuck, is being attached. Any comments?
Yeah, for sure. Attachments and right, those expectations of this is the way it should be, or I have to do it this way. So absolutely, we get stuck in that one way of thinking that it has to be like this. And that keeps us from being more creative to see other ways to do things. And and to get out of that space. You know, there's so many different strategies to get unstuck. And part of it is what we tell ourselves, right? Those expectations turn into also, I can't do that. That's, whatever the language is that's maybe holding somebody back. I'm not good enough. And maybe they don't even know that that's the language. But if you catch yourself, so a real simple strategy is like if you catch yourself repeating the same types of things, like I hear myself lately, I'm a professional noticer. That's what I do. And that's what the reset mindset gives you, that heightened awareness to be noticing your language, noticing your interactions, looking for those signals. And I've noticed that I've been saying a lot, I don't have the time, because I've bitten off a little bit more than I can chew with my book coming out and engagements and right? We all have a lot of different plates in the air. And so I'm recognizing that. And so we can just, every time you hear yourself say it, snap your fingers, right? We want to break that pattern that we're just repeating. So when we break that pattern, eventually, just like a CD that would play, for those of you who remember CDs, they would, if you scratched it over and over again, then it wouldn't play anymore. And
Yeah.
so, that's the idea, that we can break a pattern and then replace it with something else, right? Wait a minute, I choose, I choose not to do this over that. It's not that I can't do this, it's that I've made this a higher priority. Maybe I need to step back and check on my priorities and what they really are.
Well, I also think, you say you're a noticer. I think one of the words I would use is I'm an observer. And I think when you take the 50,000-foot view of observing from the top down, I've said this so many times on my shows, and I got this through my degree in spiritual psychology. If you had a camera follow you all day long and they videoed it and you watched back the video, would you like what you saw?
Right.
And I think it's important for people in resetting their mindset to say, hey, I just watched the video and there was so much about that video that I was not happy with. And the
Mm.
question is how do I change it? What do I do to go about changing either that behavior or that action or the thing that I did, or I got emotional and I spouted off, but all of those things. So how can the reset mindset help individuals reframe, I love it, setbacks and failures to continue progressing toward their, I'm going to say, aspirations? Okay. So how does this reset mindset, because you said there's 3 simple steps: step back, get
Mm-hmm.
perspective, realign. Okay. So if I just kept that in my mantra,
Mm-hmm.
when this
Exactly.
happened, could I just like literally go, okay, this is my mantra, step back, take a breath, get perspective, realign? Would that be the secret?
I mean, I know it sounds ridiculously oversimplified, but that is the secret. Or that same process could happen with a lot of different mantras. So let's say you're in a conflict with someone. Maybe your mantra that is part of a reset mindset is just to assume positive intent. That this person doesn't mean to harm me or upset me. There's a misunderstanding, and I just need to listen and ask questions and keep the intensity down, right? Believe that it's with positive intent. And what happens when I do that is, in that moment, I'm stepping back to create awareness in myself to say, hey, this isn't personal, right? I'm giving it perspective to say, okay, let's find out what's really going on here, and then let's realign with the most important thing, which is our relationship, and get it back on track, right? So those steps, you can remember those steps as the mantra, or you can remember other mantras or statements or quotes or frameworks that you might use that actually go through those steps, because they're more like a mental model, and there's lots of other cues that can happen that trigger that mental model. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I want to point this out at this point because you've created a course that people can take I actually went there the other day, and there's video recordings of you. If you would speak about your course, because I really think that for people that are really want to get this, granted, you can get it through the book, but a lot of people are a little more auditory or kinesthetic, and they want to go through a course. Speak with us about that course and how the people can get it and what the cost is for the course.
Yeah, well, at the moment, the cost is the cost of the book. So when they buy the book, they'll get the course for free because it's not exactly the same. What's in the book is more of the introduction to what is a reset mindset, why do we need it, and basically understanding how it can be used. But then the course will go in a little bit more depth and supplement the book so that they can put it into practice. There's worksheets and examples and
So
things
the
like that.
QR codes in the back of this basically take them. I know there's a couple of QR codes, right? Right here. I'll just
Yes.
show my listeners. There they are. Okay. And so there's bonuses and other offers there. One of them also is the productivity zone. But they literally can get there through that, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also when they go to the resetmindset.net, there's a place there where they can record the purchase ID number, and then it will send them a link to the bonus
And I'm going to
material.
make a plug here because we all learn through spaced repetition, and we're working with Mark Hirschberg now to get authors to do this, is Brain Bump. Penny is on Brain Bump. So if you don't have the Brain Bump app and you're into kind of spaced repetition learning, which is like, okay, I just want small little bite-sized pieces. I don't have the ability to take this all at once. I think Mark's Hirschberg's idea is a brilliant idea.
Definitely.
And to get actually Penny's quotes, and you can choose when you want to get them. Like if you want to get one in the morning, 3 times a week, or you only want it once a week, you can choose all that. But definitely go to brainbumpapp.com. There you can learn more, and you can learn more about Penny's because Penny's book is in there. The Reset Mindset is in there. So, any
Greg, can I
thoughts?
share a quick story for real quick story?
Yeah, we were going to get to that next. So you're beating
Oh,
me. No, it's
perfect.
good.
Then
Go ahead. I want to hear
because
the story.
it's to your point of how do we reframe things. So I think, I talked about it, but not personally, right? So I was in a situation when I was working with this market research company, and I was on the executive team, and I was brought in at a time where there was a lot of change and a lot of really big changes for the organization that was happening. And the senior leadership, they didn't really accept me. The CEO brought me in and didn't really invite other senior leaders to be part of that selection process. And so there was a lot of infighting of people wanting to be CEO, so they didn't like somebody new. I was a woman in a male dominated society. I didn't know the industry. I wasn't from Switzerland and didn't speak the language. So like I had all of these sort of things against me, and it actually was a very toxic environment in the beginning. And you talked about how can we reframe things. I mean, I was very close to quitting. I was many times brought to tears in the way that I was treated, and the lack of respect, and the challenges that we were facing, and I just felt alone. And there was a point when I was sitting in my car one day, and I was, I was already in knots, and I was just coming into the office, and I was in tears, and I said to myself, I have a choice to make, and I could quit, or I can be the change agent, is I can stop being the victim, and I can be an agent of change in this situation, and I can drive change, and I can focus on what's going to help me drive change versus, what's all against me. I had every reason to be upset and right and all of those things too, fair enough, but that wasn't going to get me anywhere, and it certainly wasn't going to get the organization anywhere. So I chose to be a change agent. And with that shift in my mindset, I was able to shift others' mindsets. So that's how we in an organization, it's one person at a time, one reset moment at a time. that can help us to shift ourselves and then shift others so that we can work to the greater good.
Well, you point out an important point here, and it's really around the energy that you carry as an individual into an organization, into a room, into an environment. As a public speaker, you realize this because it's about reading your audience. It's about what your audience needs and wants, right? And a really good speaker like yourself, who's been on TEDx, who's done numerous, talked to thousands of people, you understand that the minute you get up on stage and you read your audience and the energy that you carry is so extremely important for people to actually be receptive to your message, to be receptive of Penny Zucker. It's just that's the way it is, right? Otherwise, I'm going to sit here like this and go, no, I don't want to listen to this lady because she doesn't have anything to say that I want to hear. So, if you were to leave our listeners today with as the reset mindset is kind of evolving, right? We've talked about how this can evolve for people. And what do you see as far as some of the maybe future trends do you anticipate in the field of personal growth and organizational development? Because look, this is your field. This is you're actually giving people through your productivity book and through the Reset Mindset book, these two books, plus your course, you're really trying to get people to open up their energy fields to be more receptive and to understand there are other perspectives, right? Get perspective. Yours isn't the only perspective. Now, while that may sound super simple, the reality is we have all kinds of biases. Every day we have blind spots, we have biases. I could think about Penny this way because she wears her earrings the whatever way she wears them, whatever. And so what do you see happening? Where do you see this trending? Because you're on the bleeding edge of it.
Well, I see distraction. If we allow it, distractions are only going to increase because of the change and because of all the information that's available to us. I also think with the growth and exponential change that's going to happen through technology and AI, that we might be looking at people being more apathetic and more complacent. Oh, that'll be done, by AI, and it is the way that it is, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I see a big risk in those areas, and that's exactly where we need to have a reset mindset, understanding that we have to take back control and of the things that we can control and let go of the things that we can't. Bring our creativity so that we can maximize the technology that's available going forward, so that we can create new roles that are going to lead to greater impact, and just be able to deal with, they say that 75%, I think it was Harvard Business Review, 75% of change management efforts fail, right? And that change is becoming exponential. So we need to shift into a reset mindset so that we as individuals and also leaders can be able to dance with the change as it comes about.
Well, and that's a really good point you make. 75% of change management actually fail. And in my humble opinion, they fail because they get too complex. I think simplicity, we see people, I saw CBS Sunday Morning. I was watching just this last Sunday, and this couple moved from the busy city to this island in Maine, and there's only 50 people on the island, right? Only 50 people, right? And the kids are going to a schoolhouse where there's only 3 people in the school, in the class, right? And so it gives you an idea. Now, that's pretty radical minimalism and simplicity. I do agree. And they've given up their Starbucks, as they said, for living on this little island in Maine. But they said it is the best thing they ever did for their kids and themselves. And I think we're in a global change at this point where we're all seeking something. Again, that story is maybe a little bit too radical. You aren't going to do that. But here's what I would say, and I want to see if you concur. Take that time to go do some meditation every morning or a walk with the dog don't put your headset on or take your iPhone with you. Leave it at home so you can just smell the roses along the way. Little simple things. Have
Mm.
gratitude that you even woke up that morning and had an opportunity to go walk out in the woods or walk with your dogs or walk along the beach. But to me, it's those simple little moments, every one of them every day, like what you're saying, that's the reset mindset.
Yeah.
All of those things are actually resets.
Yes.
It's like, hey, I'm sitting here doing a podcast after you. I want to get up and reset, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been doing this all morning already. And I would say to everyone else, go reset right after this podcast, after you listen to it, right? Any
Absolutely.
You want to leave
And
our listeners with any other words, Penny?
yeah, maybe just to build on what you said, is those resets are what help us to break down the complexity, right? They bring us back into the simplicity of the bigger picture and what's really important and how to center ourselves and be present and future minded, right? Not just present, but also future minded and intentional. And yeah, so take those moments, take the time to reflect, take the time to be more intentional. I think that is the absolute key for our future, is this reassessment helps us to be more intentional and brings us back in alignment with our goals, our values, and our intentions.
Well, Penny, I love what your message is all about. I love you. Thank you for being here on Inside Personal Growth. And for all of my listeners, the book is The Reset Mindset. My fingers are on it. Penny Zenker. Is that how you say it? Am I saying it right?
Zenker. Zenker.
Zinker.
Yeah.
Definitely go out, look at her website. We'll put a link to the website. Also, when you buy this book for free, you basically can take this QR code and go and get this great course that she's got. And she's got it broken down. I love how she did it because not any one little module is that long. They're all really short little modules. I was in there just the other day going through them. One thing she did do is you can't cheat. You have to go through each one to get to the next one. And I think that's brilliant because I was trying to push forward.
I might
So,
change that because people do want to be flexible. So I'm
right.
getting feedback on that about how people are engaging with it.
Yeah, well, I thought it was great. And I just want
Good.
to thank you for doing it and thank you for inviting me into it. Thanks for being on Inside Personal Growth. Namaste to you. Have a wonderful, beautiful day.
Thank you.